Hello, welcome to the Snap UK podcast. I'm your host this week, Johnny Thrash, and we have a full house. We have Griff.
Hello.
We have 4 Inches.
Hello.
We have Gilo.
Evening.
And over the airwaves, in what we're now a multimedia podcast. I don't know, Jim. You're doing this via FaceTime from home. So say hello.
Hello. I really wondered where you were going with that.
Well, it's just because you're going to sound different from everyone else. So, yeah. But you're in isolation.
More educated.
Yeah, you're in isolation because you're disgusting and dirty. So, whilst you're unclean, we're over here, looking into week 13 of the NFL season. And let's just start, with the result of the season. Vikings 27-29 Lions. And I celebrated in Griff's living room. Griff celebrated in Griff's living room. Paul, were you celebrating at home?
I celebrated in my living room.
Gary, where did you celebrate the Lions win?
I still couldn't care less. Honestly, I know everyone's going big. Oh, it's great. It's the first, finally the last team to win a game. Week 13, that pressure. What a moment, all that kind of stuff, and yeah, great. But all it does is just throws the NFC into more chaos because every team seems to be able to lose stupid games. The playoff picture's ridiculous. Zimmer's just lost his job. So, yeah, there's it's good for the team. Don't get me wrong. I do, the coach seems like a good guy, so I'm fine with it. But I didn't celebrate it. I have to admit.
I thought it was wonderful, and if there was any team that was going to lose this season to the Lions, any team who's going to lose to the Lions, it was the Vikings. It seems they've got everything other than luck this season. With the games they've lost, I don't know. This isn't a normal Vikings team because they lost. They didn't have Barr, and they didn't have. I can't remember the other guy's name. Kendricks,
Phelan as well.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, Phelan went out early, didn't he? Really?
Yeah.
They were missing big players, but there's no excuse. Not when last week people are still saying, well, they're in the shout for the playoffs because they could go on a run at any point, and Mattison can step up and be almost as good as Dalvin Cook, and then you drop a massive turd, and you let Jared Goff lead the Vikings down the field.
On the defense,
Lions, sorry.
Because Cousins played all right.
Cousins played fine.
340 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks.
No, his numbers every week are the same. He's steady and mildly impressive, more so than he gets credit for.
And they nearly scored 30 points again. They let the Lions score 29 points.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
Without DeAndre Swift as well.
Yeah, madness.
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings beat the Packers like 2 weeks ago. They've gone from beating. I mean, we'll do our power rankings next week, because then because of the slightly longer season, we'll do it with 4 weeks to go. But I imagine Packers are going to be in the top 3 teams for most people.
Definitely top 5, I think.
Yeah. And the Vikings beat them and then lost to the Lions, who are going to be bottom 3 for most teams.
But that seems to be the case. I think what we're seeing this year, apart from the real dearth, and I know this is the Lions, but apart from that, anybody can almost beat anybody this year. I think the difference between the team in 6th, and we've had the trouble doing our power rankings, the problem is between 6th and 18th, there is almost nothing between a lot of those teams. The Chiefs are having a bad year, the Bills are very up and down, the Titans have got a load of injuries, etc., etc., etc. It's just mad this year. It's impossible to pick.
I love it because there's that thing that you shared in our WhatsApp group, Jim, which was the circle of every team technically, this like merry-go-round of who's beat who. This season has been insane, and I think. But then again, looking at the schedule and seeing the fixtures, if the Lions were going to win any one, it was this one, and I can't see them winning any others moving forward. So, Jim, this is what you're usually very good for when we're all together. What's the Lions' schedule looking like?
I could also do that remotely, Paul. But the Lions have got the Broncos this week, then the Cardinals, then the Falcons, Seahawks, and Packers. So yeah, I think you're right. I think that's probably their one and only chance to get a win on the board.
Could be the
Falcons they could do.
Falcons as well, yeah.
I think they can win one more, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Broncos next week.
The Seahawks for me.
So you don't think they'll go winless for the rest of the season, is what you're saying? Now you've heard their schedule. 364 days since their last win it was.
That's terrifying.
It is madness. Jared Goff played very well. Mumra St. Brown was amazing. You know, people are stepping up. And I thought it was great of the coach to dedicate the win to the people lost in another school shooting. When will they learn?
Yeah.
Crazy. But I think it was very classy. The Lions have basically achieved what they wanted for the season now. That's the win they needed. They're tanking. I don't know what for, because they need everything. But I
think Goff will probably get another year. I don't think
he'll get any choice, because there's nothing coming out to replace him.
He's not been bad enough. You know, the season isn't on Goff, is it? I know he's had a few times where he's not delivered to the level they wanted, but they're just not an overall good enough football team, are they?
He's not the problem.
He's got no one. He's got no one to pass to. Like, you look at, okay, I know some of the wide receivers get laudits this week, the Amon St. Brown for catching the touchdown at the end. And yeah, fair play. He's not a number one wide receiver, is he? Like, if they had Kenny Golladay, yeah.
He's not even the best receiver in his family.
Goff is a middling quarterback, but you're right. He'll be there next year, because there's nothing in the draft. They don't want to give up draft capital to get the quarterback available for trade. So pick an edge rusher, which this class is stacked
I knew he'd say
and move
rusher.
on.
I knew you'd say edge rusher.
You have to get it in there somewhere, don't you? Yeah.
I think you're right though. They've got to build from the defense. You know, you'd think Matt Patricia would have done that whilst he was there.
He did. He built a very old Patriots defense, which was shit.
And he also brought in Jeff Okudah, who was the ultimate shit.
They're paying Trey Flowers, a defensive end from the Patriots. I think he makes up about 10% of their salary currently, and he has done nothing. So they can cut him, start again. One thing I will call out though, like, you look at the reaction to Dan Campbell when they won the game. Like, Jared Goff went sprinting over to him in the changing room after the game. They gave him they gave Dan Campbell the game ball. This team is playing for that coach. And I know, Gary, you're completely right. It doesn't matter. They're 1-13 and 1 or whatever it is, and it's completely pointless. But they have been unlucky in certain games, and they are playing. At times, they're playing really well, and they have probably deserved to win more than one game this year just on how they've played.
They're not the worst team in the NFL.
No,
Texans are the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Possibly the Jets, but not the Lions.
The Jets are terrible.
They're 1-10-1, because next week they'll be 1-11-1, which will be a nice 1-1-1.
Or they won't.
And the Jags are pretty bad as well.
So. Yeah, but they're not. They're far from the worst team.
Oh yeah, they're in that category of shit.
Yeah.
Not utter shit.
You will never see the Vikings players run to Mike Zimmer the way the Lions players ran to Dan Campbell. It just isn't going to be a thing. So I think they're on the right track with the coach. I don't mind them keeping Jared Goff for another year or two even. I think that's fine. We know the running back is good when he's fit. The defense is a massive problem.
Have they got draft capital in the next draft?
They haven't got heaps of draft capital, but they've got enough. They've got picks.
They've got their picks.
Okay.
But the problem is there isn't a lot there at quarterback, for instance, to take. There's no one worth taking. There's barely anyone worth taking in the first round, let alone in the top 10. So that's the issue they've got. It's a bad year to flunk.
There's enough quarterbacks floating around though. You know, if you don't like Goff, you can have Jimmy Garoppolo, can't you? If you don't like Jimmy Garoppolo, you can go and get Andy Dalton.
Is Jimmy Garoppolo an upgrade?
No, but my point is...
No, but is he an upgrade in this team?
I don't think so, no. I think he's mobile enough. But my point is there are quarterbacks available of a similar talent level.
Yeah, always.
We keep saying it's not the quarterback, because you could bring Aaron Rodgers into this team. He's throwing at no one. So it's what's around him that's the issue. So,
Aaron Rodgers has been MVP throwing to no ones.
That's true.
He also has Devontae Adams.
True. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Anyway,
we've given far too much of our capital to the Lions.
We did celebrate like England had won the World Cup. We were on our knees in my lounge.
I celebrated more for this than I did when we beat the Danes.
When we beat Colombia in that penalty shootout, and we celebrated really quietly in Paul's house so as not to wake up his child. It was a bit like that.
Yeah. Anyway, so on to from the ridiculous to more ridiculous. Pats 14-10 Bills. I did look it up. There have been games where the teams have not thrown the ball at all. So it's not the least of all time, but you won by throwing the ball 3 times.
And completing it twice.
It's the second fewest in the Super Bowl era after the Kansas City Chiefs in 1968, I believe.
That's what I had, yep.
Yeah, it's... it was a tremendous game plan from the best coach in the NFL, who observed the conditions, observed what the Bills do badly, which is be physical, and said, "Well, we'll just stick to our game plan." Then they were helped out by the fact the Bills blew all their coverage, and Damian Harris scampered for a 75-yard touchdown on the first drive, I think, for New England, which then just let the New England defense play to their game plan, because what could they do? It was a masterclass, and Bill Belichick was then asked, "What do you think this means for the game in 2 weeks' time, or 3 weeks' time, whenever it is, 2 weeks' time?" And he said, "Well, it just means we've got all of our passing playbook open still, and they haven't seen anything." And he basically was just grinning like this was amazing.
But this is a man who loves having a ridiculously weird plan against the Bills and screwing
They
them.
called a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 5. Mac Jones didn't make it, so then they called it again on 4th and 1. They did consecutive quarterback sneaks. It was brilliant. It was, the weather was the key in this game. I was saying to Paul before we started, our punter, the New England punter, hit a 50-yard punt that then blew back the other direction 35 yards for a net gain of 15 yards on a punt.
Well,
That's insane.
The first kick went into the crowd, didn't it?
Yeah, it just sailed.
It went, and not even like just into the...
No,
it was fully like...
Rose Ed.
Like a beautiful 6, sort of in mid into the crowd. It was... you're like, okay, yeah, this might be a bit odd, this game.
Yeah, it was. It had all the hallmarks of one of these, like the Snow Bowl game and the Fog Bowl, and it was one of those really weird games. And there's not much to say other than the Patriots just put themselves in prime position to be the number 1 seed in the AFC, which is insane. Duncan texted me at stupid o'clock this morning and said, "I can't cope with another decade of Pat's greatness." I have no idea if that'll be the thing.
Griff, one thing to add to this, I think, we talk about Bill Belichick and how genius he is. He finds different ways to win games. This is his way of winning the game this week. On the flip side, the Bills haven't got the personnel to win a game in a different way. Like we've said it for weeks. Their running game is just non-existent. I think Josh Allen is still their leading rusher.
Yeah.
So you
Matt
can't.
Brady fumbled.
In those conditions, you can't rely on the passing game at all. And Belichick didn't. Josh Allen threw it 30 times and had 15 completions, which under the conditions is absolutely incredible. He's probably one of the few quarterbacks that could do that just because of the strength of his arm. But they need to develop something else in their game, which allows them to be, gives kind of Belichick a few question marks over how he's going to set up his defense. It was easy for him. Easy.
Well, they ran for under 100 yards in total in the snow, which is just mental.
Dumb.
It's just stupid, isn't it? So, and we talked about it at the start of the season, and I think this will be the Bills' downfall.
Yeah, they're just not physical enough as a team. When the weather is okay, Josh Allen can absolutely steam the ball down the field. Stephon Diggs gets free. Manuel Sanders gets free. Cole Beasley gets free. But when the conditions don't suit, Sanders has disappeared for 4 of the last 5 weeks. Cole Beasley becomes a peripheral figure, and Stephon Diggs has 2 highlight plays a game. And that's
but
not enough.
You're playing in New England and in Buffalo. Like, you're going to have games where the conditions aren't good. They're not a dome team.
That's why they chose Josh Allen in the first place, because he had the biggest arm. And it has worked over the past 3 years. It's just, in this game, it was 40-mile-an-hour winds. Like, you don't throw in that. 30 attempts is crazy, but it's because they cannot lean on the running game.
And I think outside of Mahomes as well, when you look at the teams that are doing well, and when they're doing well in this league, it's when they've got 2 good running backs. When the Browns were ripping the league up at the start of the season, 2 good running backs. When the Titans were ripping it up, Derrick Henry is basically 2 good running backs. So, but if you put all that together and then see what the Patriots are doing, they're taking all the pressure off Mac Jones. It's like, we don't actually need you, Mac Jones. Like, even if you only throw the ball 3 times, doesn't matter.
Did you see the quote from Matt Judon, who said, "Hats off to our offense. It was amazing today. Everyone except Mac. He didn't do anything."
but it proves they just how much pressure that must take off him.
Yeah.
When you look at like the pressure that Mahomes is under, Lamar's under,
Look at the other rookies.
Josh Allen's under,
Wilson, just all of them are getting crushed. Trevor Lawrence, who's supposed to be the best of the bunch, just getting crushed.
And everybody thought they were so stupid for taking Mac Jones as well.
He fell into the lap.
I think Belichick could have done the same with any of the quarterbacks because he would
Yeah.
hardly have given them the ball unless
true.
it was against a scheme he liked.
Looking ahead, the Patriots have timed this so well. They now have a bye. Then they play the Colts, then they play the Bills again, and then they close out the season with some nobody teams probably. But Dolphins, I think.
You're going to have the Dolphins, aren't you?
The Dolphins.
You've already played the Jets twice.
Yeah. But they've basically given themselves the best possible opportunity to close out with 3 or 4 wins the last few weeks. Like they could sail into the playoffs, which you never hear me say these things about the Patriots. I don't, even when we've had Brady and we've been in pole position. But I don't know how teams are supposed to beat them at the moment because their defence is playing at a league best standard. The running game is right up there. I think they're 3rd or 4th overall in the running game. And when they've had to make completions, they've made them. They just don't do that often. But I don't know. Like, Josh McDaniels is calling perfect games, and Bill Belichick's put a perfect defence out there. Who's better in the AFC right now?
Oh, the only team that's going to beat them is from the NFC.
Yeah.
And it's either going to be the Packers or the Buccaneers. And, of course, I think
if the
NFL
to sit there and watch Brady play against Belichick and listen to all those stories, I might just give up this podcast because
I was just about to predict
it.
Gary might quit the podcast by second week of the playoffs because, it's going to be all the narrative is going to be that.
If the Titans had Derrick Henry, I'd say the Titans had a way better chance. But we've seen what happens when they don't have him. And
you see what happens when they get to playoffs. Someone stops him. They've had Derrick Henry for so many years, and they get beat in the playoffs every year. True. It's just what happens. The only difference is maybe this year because he's been injured, he might not be so tired.
That's true.
That might be a saving grace. But anyway, let's move on because there's still some time before the playoffs. So, Chargers 41, 22 Bengals.
Yeah, this did not go the way I thought it would.
From what I was watching Red Zone, but from what I saw on Red Zone, it seemed more like the Bengals lost this than the Chargers won it.
I don't think either team really wanted to win, and the fact it was by 20 points, effectively, it's both flattered the Chargers, but it did also, the Bengals weren't very good either. I mean, neither team...
Just random mistakes.
Yeah.
Last week, I think we had a discussion, didn't we, and said which of these teams is the better team because we thought they were quite closely matched teams, and I think quite a few of us picked the Chargers were the better overall team.
Yeah.
And I think it's just I picked the Bengals to win that game because they're at home, but it could have gone either way. But I picked it because of home advantage. But it's 2 young, dynamic quarterbacks with teams that aren't quite there yet. It was just going to be one of those games. It was always going to be a shootout. One team was going to get on top and then the other one was going to make mistakes. You just could have gone either way.
The difference for me was the Chargers shut down the thing the Bengals have been doing best, which was they basically stopped Joe Mixon. He had 19 carries for 54 yards. He had a touchdown. In the last 6 games, he'd been averaging nearly 6 yards a carry. This week it was 2.8. They just shut it down, and that was the difference. The Bengals didn't...
And Chase as well. They shut Chase down. Higgins had
Chase has been shut down for quite a few games in a row now. He started off hot, and I think...
Getting some better coverage.
I think everyone... As well, maybe other managers also believed that he couldn't catch the ball without white stripes on it,
T. Higgins was amazing.
T. Higgins
9
is
receptions, 138 yards and a touchdown. And that's the difference. When someone else in your team is drawing coverage, your other good players will find ways to get through.
Because he has turned into a player this year, T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Really, really come through nicely as well.
Yeah. Huge fan. Didn't Mixon go down injured at one point? Like, he went out for a bit, came back.
I thought it was concussion, but they let him back in after a series. So
because
Because it's all the hopes of Cincinnati are on that man. I don't care how concussed he is, put a helmet in, get out there.
This is what Chargers do. Remember, Lamar, when he first came through, was this juggernaut it was Derwin James in the playoffs, who absolutely shut down Lamar. And, this Chargers team still has Derwin James back. It's got still Joey Bosa. It's got the weapons on its defense to shut down these young mobile quarterbacks.
And this was a close game for most of the game. There was only 2 points in it going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So it was close, and then one team just stretched away at the end. So I think this will be interesting to see how both these teams develop. They've both got a great future over the next 3 to 5 years, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, who'd have thought that?
Well,
the Bengals.
They're both on the up.
Who saw this one coming? Ravens 19-20 Steelers.
No, not me.
I did.
Did you?
I'm not even sure Mike Tomlin saw this coming.
Before we dive into the game, just before we go ahead and rightfully analyse what is a painful defeat for the Ravens, can we have a minute to talk about the Steelers punter, who might be my new favourite player in the league? Presley Harvin.
Yes.
The
punter who looks like Refrigerator Perry.
He's a big bloke, but that one bounced
downed it on the 1 foot line. It was amazing. The guy
like
was
chef's
so accurate.
kiss. But yeah, he's not an athlete.
I don't know. He could block someone. I suspect he could block anyone in the league. The guy's just a massive man.
He's a unit, but
my new favourite player.
I mean, once again, we sort of saw the best and worst of Lamar here, because he isn't able to move the ball like a Herbert, Burrow, or even any other quarterback who can throw a ball.
253 yards against the Steelers' defense, which is not bad.
Well, I don't think the Ravens' offensive line is very good.
No, he got
their
sacked
run game's
7
terrible.
times.
So Lamar Jackson, he puts up stats that other quarterbacks just would not put up, and he ends up throwing on the run all the time. Not just because he wants to run around, but because he's being chased all the time. So that Ravens offensive line is still not good enough. And again, his running game is, I know they've had lots of injuries this season. They've tried lots of different people, but it's still not good enough, is it, around him?
Oh, I agree. This feels a little bit like Russell Wilson after the Super Bowl, when they were beginning to go down a little bit. There was 2 seasons where it just seemed Russell Wilson was just running sideways repeatedly. It feels a little bit like that.
As well, they were a drop catch from winning this, because I know it was.
That's harsh. It wasn't. It was a bad pass from Lamar.
I'm
6
just saying,
inches overthrown.
It wasn't the best.
Let me tell you, 6 inches is a long way.
Well, yeah, and TJ Watt's hand was only 6 inches from Lamar's head.
Yeah.
When he threw it.
But yeah,
TJ Watt, you good point to bring him up. He's got to be in a shout with Defensive Player of the Year.
He's got the most sacks, hasn't he? But he missed 2 games. It's
crazy.
It's a crazy stat line.
But the Steelers weren't going to score more than 20 points. This is the Steelers' defense win. Roethlisberger's come out already, hasn't he, and said he's unlikely to be back next year.
No, he's denied it.
Has he denied that now? Well, shut up.
Yeah, the rumors were that he said to the locker room that this was going to be his last year, and then he's come out and denied it.
It's not like him to deny a rumor.
That's true.
I'm going with no smoke without fire. He's definitely going, isn't he? And they're a resilient team. Resilient franchise. Mike Tomlin knows how to get a team into the playoffs. There's an extra slot this year. They've still got a chance.
I'll see.
Yeah.
Their game management's so good.
You can never. There's a couple of teams you can just never count against, and Steelers are one of them.
And I think divisional games, we always forget about divisional games because, I think like Seahawks, Niners, you'd say, both been up and down over the last few years. And I think, we're coming on to that soon. But, the Niners have lost 16 out of 18 games to the Seahawks.
Wow. That is
That's their recent record.
Yeah, it's not great.
I mean, didn't Tomlin they were a game away from the playoffs with Doc Hodges? So, I mean, I know Roethlisberger isn't great, but he's still better than Doc Hodges. So
Before we move on, we should point out that the Ravens, like you say, they basically lost this on a failed 2-point conversion right at the end. They marched down the field. They scored the touchdown. Was it Sammy Watkins?
yep.
And by the way, where's he been? But it's Sammy Watkins. And then they chose to go for 2 because they didn't want to basically have to keep playing in overtime because John Harbaugh said, we've got no corners left.
Yeah.
Everyone's injured. And are they the Ravens not the team that have used the most players this season?
Yeah.
Like, they haven't used the same offensive line combo in consecutive games. I think they've started 7 different corners.
Probably eight running backs.
Yeah, well, they had 4 running backs out before the season started.
Yeah.
Like, they've got the most players ever on IR, effectively.
But Marlon Humphrey going is a huge loss to them as well.
Yeah, it's not ideal. But the point is, going for 2 there was probably the right call, considering the state his team is in. It's unlucky, but we'd be saying, wow, what a resilient team. Can't believe they pulled that off. Didn't the Steelers play well, but they haven't got enough, blah, 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 blah. That shows you it is literally the game of inches because it was just off Andrew's fingertips, and that's the difference.
Well, how many close games have the Ravens been in lately? Loads.
A lot.
Yeah.
Loads. And they were going to lose one, weren't they? So, this is
Of
the one.
course.
Yeah. So
So you were talking just then about the Niners record against the Seahawks.
yeah.
Do you want to just carry on with that?
Niners 23, 30 Seahawks.
Well, it was
You're doing it weird.
He is doing it weird.
I
I think
don't
he's
like-
doing it on purpose to wind us up.
And it's working. It's bloody working.
Sorry.
So yeah, a crazy first half, and points just going all over the place, interceptions all over the place, a safety. The first half was just crazy, and then there was like 7 points or whatever, or 10 points in the second half, wasn't there? It was the defenses got on top a bit more, but they're a bogey team for us. We just don't play well against Seattle. Apart from that game we won,
By an inch a couple of years ago.
a couple of years ago, just statistically tart, wasn't it, on the goal line or whatever made the stop.
Dre Greenlaw.
Greenlaw was it? Yeah, but apart from that, there's not been a lot of joy there for us lately. So
Still,
Well, let's look at things you can be joyful about. George Kittle, 9 receptions, 181 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the finest mullet in football.
yeah, he finally looks really fit again, doesn't he? So that's really positive.
And one of the touchdowns, the dance down the byline.
Down the line.
How he didn't go out of play, that was incredible. As
Poised
well.
like a ballerina. Yeah, it was incredible. So you that's good. The reawakening of Brandon Ayuk.
So that was very close to a different word.
It really was.
But yeah, Ayuk's played well the last couple of games, and Debo was out there, wasn't he?
yeah. Devo was out this
So
week.
he had to do something.
But it's a positive that he was playing. And in Mitchell, I think you've found a running back you can lean on. Okay, it wasn't great. It was averaging 3 yards per attempt, but he doesn't seem to break down like your other running backs do, and that is what this offense needs.
Yet.
Yeah, granted. And then we get to the same question every week. Jimmy Garoppolo, yes or no? What do you do? He threw an awful interception again, and he does seem to have these plays where he's not switched on. And then he got dragged down for the safety by Carlos Dunlap, who, by the way, played that perfectly because everyone was looking for the face mask, and it wasn't at all. He just grabbed him by the collar and threw himself on the floor.
Dunlap also got the tip on the pass at the end of the game as well, when we
Right at the
were
end,
4th and 3 or whatever.
Yeah, he blocked you from scoring. So and that was his best game of the season. But Jim, if Trey Lance is the future, is it not now, this point in the season, where you feed him in?
No.
No, it's not. I was going to say that the 49ers are almost like the opposite of the Bills. Like, if the running game's playing well, then Garoppolo's all right, because you don't have to ask him to do much. But if the running game gets stuffed up like it did, and fair play to Seattle for doing it, if you're asking Garoppolo to win the game, he's not the man for that. He's a good game manager. He can pass the ball relatively well, but he's not going to be an Aaron Rodgers or a Patrick Mahomes to win the game. So, no, he's not the man. But also, we're still in the playoff hunt. It's now not the time to bring in Trey Lance and risk not being in the playoff hunt.
Would you bring him in the playoffs?
No. Well, Shanahan is committed to just keeping him on the bench this year. So if that's the plan, then stick to the plan and keep on the bench and trade Garoppolo.
We have seen teams do some crazy stuff like that in the past, just to completely throw oppositions, haven't we? We didn't expect to be here. Let's just see what happens. I don't know. I think we are still in the playoff position, aren't we? I believe.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. We're the eighth. Sorry, the seventh seed.
Seventh seed, but
yeah.
You did give up a 75-yard fake punt for a touchdown.
Special teams has been a right bugbear this year. Like, not only that, we kind of muffed another punt reception or kickoff reception as well. We did that twice in a game early in the season. So that's costing us yards, because that was the kickoff for the second half. We never got out of our half for probably about, I think Shanahan said it felt like an hour. We were camped in our half with bad field positions. But we're also costing ourselves so many games just on penalties. Like, it was another 10 penalties for 86 yards, like some roughing the passer penalties, which, on third down just keeps the defense on the field, and then they're knackered. They started off brilliantly, the defense, but they were just knackered by the end of it, and that's when Russell Wilson plays his best football.
And he did play well. He finally looked back to being fit again. And
30 of 37.
Two touchdowns, was it?
2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 231 yards. He was sacked 4 times. It's not like you weren't putting pressure on him, but this is the fittest he looked since before he got injured, probably.
Yeah.
To be fair, that interception wasn't on him either. That was a bounce off someone's leg.
It was Gerald Everett, so I was going to mention the tight end. So he had the ball bounce off him for an interception, and he fumbled twice.
Yeah.
It was a rough day to be Gerald Everett. It did not work well.
The interception was like on the 1 yard line as well,
yeah,
wasn't it?
It was like there was nothing good about his day at all.
You can see why the Rams kept Tyler Higbee.
Yeah, that was the comment you made to me at the time, and that seemed fair. What is it that Adrian Peterson is doing to pay people to let him run 1 yard touchdown scores? Because he's now debuted for 2 teams this season, scored from a total of 2 touchdowns from a total of 4 yards, and then has never been seen or heard from again. So
it's the Adrian Peterson retirement tour. It's lovely. He's going round the NFL, making sure he plays in as many cities as possible. I like it.
He went about 10th overall now for most touchdowns.
Yeah.
Everything he is 10th now. Yeah.
Level with Jim Brown.
No.
It is a sad way to see him ending his career just to pay his legal fees.
Yeah, he's just that broke. It's
yeah.
amazing.
Well, yeah. Anyway, let's move on to Broncos 9-22 Chiefs.
This is why he's not allowed to speak most weeks, isn't it?
The Chiefs' defense, as we've been saying all season, is absolutely the last few weeks. As Steve Spagnuolo's defense generally does, they start slowly, they then get better and better and better, and it's the cycle's happening again. The Chiefs don't need to have Mahomes throwing blind passes, left-handedly to random people anymore.
Hardman.
Yeah.
4 weeks ago, the Chiefs' defense dropped Daniel Sorensen as a starter. They said, we cannot do this anymore. He has now played 2 of his best games of the season, sealing this one with a pick 6 for another 70 odd. It was like a long pick 6. He sort of skipped away and danced, and you thought, see some of these taunting penalties, they're ridiculous. If anything, he taunted the entire Broncos defense or offense even. It's like the Chiefs have basically spun themselves round from where they were over the last 3 seasons. They're now a really good defense and an extremely average offense. Patrick Mahomes doesn't look like the same player. He just doesn't. He looks like a turnover waiting to happen every play.
But when you've got the defence he's got, and John raises the good point of Steve Spagnuolo on there, that you can get away with it.
Yeah, but getting away with it doesn't get you far in the playoffs.
I don't know. Giants won a Super Bowl.
Pat Mahomes, 15 of 29, 184 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. I think it's the first time since his rookie season he'd gone consecutive games without a touchdown.
You'd rush one in.
He's got $500 million of contract for those results.
I mean, that doesn't include any advertising. His depth of pass has changed as well. Like Tyreek Hill isn't playing the same role he was, for the last few years. And if you look at, I was looking at on Pro Football Reference, adjusted net yards per pass attempts for Mahomes.
You should get out more.
He's currently I know.
He's not allowed.
Oh yeah, he's got the plague. I forget.
Literally, Last year he was at 8.3 yards per pass. This year he's at 6.4 yards per pass, and he's been consistently in kind of the mid to high 8 yards per pass. The game plan has changed a lot. There's a lot more kind of short dump off yards to kind of Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Williams. Tyreek Hill isn't. They're not getting those kind of long bombs that we're used to seeing.
The last few weeks as well. It's not like when Tyreek Hill gets the ball, they're using his pace, dropping it a short pass, using his pace to extend it, rather than trying to just run long and try and get over them. So
Paul's always been a fan of the short dump off.
But yeah,
and it isn't always about depth. That is what I've heard.
But yeah, I mean the thing is, it's not, the Chiefs can as well go back to that. They can go, they if they want to go a bit more high risk offense. But at the moment, Mahomes looks a bit.
All I would say is we've been ripping the Chiefs for most of this season because they've not hit the heights that we've seen them hit over the last 3 years, and they're still 8-4 after being like
1-5 in a row now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And what were they? They were like 2-5,
1-3, 2-5,
2-4. Sorry.
Yeah.
So they didn't start well, and all that matters is how they play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter how they are right now. The Bucks last year were not the best team in football all season until the last 4 or 5 games of the season, and then they're amazing. If Kansas can do that, it doesn't matter how they get to that stage. And I still think they've got a chance coming out of the AFC.
Oh, good job.
Oh, definitely. They'll go into the playoffs and they'll probably go far. But
I mean, they've got a chance of getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, of course they've got a chance. So Andy Reid is a great coach. It's just a different way that they're winning, which is back to what we said about the Patriots. They just decide, well, we're going to do this now then. And it seems to be working for them. We should mention if Teddy Bridgewater had actually bothered to turn up and play how he's played in half the games this season, then the Broncos would have won. But he did not play well. And in any game where he throws multiple interceptions, they are going to struggle to win because he has to manage the game perfectly. And this is the issue that they've got. So back to my Jimmy Garoppolo question. If Jimmy G's on this Broncos team, are they a better team?
No, same.
Is it at the end of this season, are they going to stick with Bridgewater or is it going to be water under the bridge?
Well, he's got to be a bridge quarterback if they're sticking with Bridge. I think it depends who becomes available. I still think certain rumours are saying Aaron Rodgers is on his way there, in which case this team then goes to being the best team in the AFC. Because the weapons are all there. Everything is there. It's just that Teddy Bridgewater's not the right player to exploit them.
As well, Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
Melvin Gordon was out this game, and Javonte Williams is a hell of a player. With a good future ahead of him. But let's move on. I think this was the Thursday night game.
It was.
Cowboys 27-17 Saints.
So the Saints made a change at quarterback.
They did.
They played Taysom Hill.
They played yes.
And he threw 4 interceptions and was fucking shit.
He's not a fucking quarterback.
Is it?
I love it's taken us this far to get angry about something today.
Taysom Hill is brilliant at everything except the position he's paid for.
Do you know what? He's brilliant at? Sales. Because he's managed to sell himself as like about 8 positions. He can't play any of them well enough to start in that position. And he's managed to get him paid $19 million a year to be nothing to nobody.
That's $1 million per completion he had in this game. 19 of 41 for 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He was sacked twice. He did rush for 101 yards. So he's he's the white Jalen Hurts. Like, I don't know, I'm not sure where he fits into this.
He's got the stats of the first time I played Madden.
He's about 30 as well. Like, it's not like he's raw talent. It's only raw talent 'cause you're trying him out in different positions each week. Oh, he's a raw talent at this position. I wonder what he's like at linebacker.
He's probably pretty good at linebacker, to be fair.
Better.
Yeah,
But
well,
this is a problem because I believe the Saints rolled the dice thinking this was going to spark their season back into life, and it hasn't, and I don't see any reason why it will. Teams know that he's going to rush. They also know they've just got to stop the passing game.
if Kamara's not back, then they're out of it.
Well, did they have to play Hill because they had no rushers? Because
Mark
Kamara's
Ingram
injured,
played.
Mark Ingram
Mark
is
Ingram
coming back
played
from injury.
10 carries for 28 yards. The problem was that all the decent rush opportunities went to Taysom Hill, which then stymied what Mark Ingram was supposed to do anyway. believe me, it was not
Ingram
good.
works best when you've got Kamara going
Of course
to
he
the edge,
does. Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
Ingram up the middle. And if you don't have that, they know Ingram's not going to beat you round the outside, is he? Very often,
Especially not a Dallas defence.
No,
Sean Payton's seat getting warm.
No.
He can survive this year without any trouble at all.
Unless he kills someone, he's fine.
But stranger things have happened.
Check his emails.
Yeah. But they need to make a decision. It now looks like 5 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago when Winston went down, they should have phoned Phillip Rivers.
No.
Because they'd have been a better team.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
See, now there is a landing spot for Jimmy G next year.
Yeah, maybe.
Because Jimmy G would be just the sort of quarterback, he can do what Breeze was doing in his last 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's
to some
fair
extent,
comment.
not the accuracy. Breeze was becoming more accurate every year. He was up to about 87% or something ridiculous, wasn't he? Just like
I think
he's probably just throwing
that's a fair call.
8-yard dump offs to Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Do you not think they're just going to stick with Jameis?
No.
depends how he comes back from his injury. He's cheap, isn't he? That's
$3 million.
Yeah, but he's shit. Sorry, he's not good enough.
Well, you say that, but they haven't won a game without him, and they were doing all right with him.
They did okay with Teddy, which is why I think they could do okay with Jimmy G.
He won 5 games, and since then they've played 5 or 6 games, and they've lost them all.
To be fair, no one in their right mind would lean on Trevor Siemian.
Does Sean Payton look across the other side of the pitch and look at Mike McCarthy and think, there's always been the rumour that Payton wants to be Dallas want Payton, and thinking that should what I could do with that Dallas team, because Mike McCarthy fine, but if I think if Payton was to leave, I think that would be the only real place for him as someone like a Dallas.
Before we talk about the Cowboys, let's just point out as well that not only do they not have a clue who to play under centre, but their best receiver, really, Harris, is now out for 3 games for the Saints because of a DUI incident.
Yes.
So that's another weapon they've lost. They won't confirm when Kamara's coming back. They're just, as a team, rolling towards a massive failure this season.
They lost someone else
That was
as
just
well.
like my fantasy teams with DeAndre Swift, Kamara, AJ Brown.
Well, haven't they always had, are they able to just get I know when Breeze was there, it's different when you got Drew Brees under centre. But didn't they have, Keith Kirkwood and just some, utter randoms? Tommy Tremble.
Tommy Lee Lewis. Yeah, that guy that played guitar in the 50s. He was there. John used to sign him every year for 1 week for fantasy. And then he'd be crap, and then he'd let him go, and the following week, 3 touchdowns.
It's good. We went on the UK Saints podcast, weren't we? And they were like, "Oh, who should we look out for this year? For the Saints, who's your fantasy pick for to give us a hint?" They were like, "Oh, you should go for Tommy Lee Lewis." So I was like, "Well, of course I'll go for him. Why not?" He caught 3 passes all fucking season. The only thing of note he's ever really done is he was the one who got hit for the non-called pass interference in the playoffs.
You never thought you'd hear me say this, but this team needs Ted Ginn.
They need anyone.
Zeke
What's
looked,
made this for me is seeing Jim's face to this team needs Ted Ginn.
Zeke looked gassed. 13 rushes for 45 yards. They should be resting him. Pollard is playing brilliantly. 7 carries, 71 yards, 1 touchdown. He just looks like early Zeke.
Yeah.
He looks brilliant. And I think just rest Zeke for the playoffs. I don't know why they keep continuing to play him. He clearly isn't fit.
No, I totally agree.
Zeke's not had a 70-yard rushing game in the last 7 games.
That's embarrassing.
That's not good enough for what is meant to be an RB1, is it? I mean, Pollard's playing better, so start Pollard and have Zeke as backup.
For a guy on $15 million a year, it's really not good enough. But yeah. The Saints have lost Cam Jordan as well.
Yes.
So that doesn't help. So I think they've already lost Latmore, haven't they? Latmore's injured.
Yeah.
So
the problem they're going to find is that they're going to fall behind the Falcons in this division.
Matt.
No.
But yeah. Anyway, we'll take a break and we'll come back for the second half of the games. Okay, welcome back. So Kyler Murray was back for the Cardinals as they beat the Bears 33-22.
He's done it properly, look.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
I think the Bears beat the Bears. Just on this game.
was pretty poor, wasn't it?
What are you trying to say? Andy Dalton was amazing in this game with his 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
And his inability to generate anything decent on offense.
At least Matt Nagy got what he wanted the whole time, which is to have Dalton as starter.
True.
And to get stacks.
At the end of the season, yes.
Yeah.
The only thing that Chicago have got going for them is David Montgomery. That's it. Their defense has regressed to being average. Their quarterback situation is a mess. Their coaching situation is a mess. David Montgomery continues to show 90 yards this week and a touchdown. He's been the only standout player this season.
So it seems the winner in getting Justin Fields was the Giants.
Justin Fields still might turn out to be a good player. He's just there's no evidence to judge him on because Matt Nagy is refusing to play. Well, he's injured at the moment, to be fair. But to Gary's point, Matt Nagy wanted to play Andy Dalton, and Andy Dalton is not good anymore.
You say anymore? I mean,
Well,
Andy Dalton's Andy Dalton, and
Yeah.
I think it's the play as well. The playbook doesn't help him either. I mean, the Chicago just looked like a team desperate for January.
they
Really,
look like a team desperate to sack their coach. Is what they look
yeah.
like. And he doesn't look like a man who can wait to get out there either. I think he knows it's over. Did you see Kyler Murray? At 24 years and 120 days, became the 4th youngest player with 10,000 career passing yards. You want to have a go between you at naming the other 3 that are younger than him?
Andrew Luck.
No.
Dan Marino.
Yes. But he is 3rd. One of
Peyton
them,
Manning.
no,
Philip Rivers.
no. One of them you have seen and is still playing. One of them you will have watched but is not playing and hasn't played for 10, 12 years, I guess.
Cam Newton.
Nope.
Not passing.
Prescott.
No.
Mahomes.
No. Number 1, Drew Bledsoe. 23 years,
Okay.
299 days. Number 2, Jameis. 23 years,
Oh, yeah, he
303
went-
days.
he's always thrown a lot of yards.
He
hasn't
puts
he?
up lots of yards. Yeah, there's nothing in here about interceptions.
I've got one of them. I'll
Did
take
you?
that.
You've
And
done
that was
well.
in the past as well.
It's something that happened today. Wow.
Well, Dan Marino was the first guy to just really take the league apart with passing, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But for a guy who doesn't live in the past and only lives in the future.
I love Ace Ventura.
Oh, fair enough.
It's only mildly transphobic right at the end, so it's it doesn't stand up.
This podcast is not a moral arbiter for anything. just not a thing.
But yeah, I still like Ace Ventura.
The Cardinals are 10-2. They
Yeah.
are comfortably the best team in the NFC.
Oh,
I don't know.
They are comfortably the best team in the NFC.
I agree with you on this. They have quality in every position.
Look, the NFC is good, which is why
The NFC's got 4.
The
3
NFC
or
has
4
three
really good
great
teams,
teams.
and the rest of it's not good.
yeah, but the AFC has like one.
No,
good team.
so John and I were saying this. The NFC is basically 1 or 2 quite good teams and then loads of average teams. The NFC is a split between 4 really good teams and a pile of crap. And that's what it is. But I think comfortably the Cardinals are the best team in the NFC.
I don't think it's comfortable because I think the Packers are very good.
The Rams,
The Rams can be very good.
Cowboys.
The Cowboys can be very good.
Current Super Bowl champions are pretty good.
And there's six. I
They're
think,
not bad.
but yeah, I think there's 4
5.
really good teams, and everything else is toilet.
That's true.
Whereas in the AFC, there's a lot. Like the Pats are doing really well, and look like a really hot team. Everything else,
A really hot team.
you know, they're
I think what's
on a
great,
streak, aren't they?
what's great with this Cardinals team is the mix of players they've got. So they've
Yes.
got the right amount of experience around Murray, especially when they get into the playoffs. That's going to, although Hopkins wouldn't have gone many times with the Texans. Did he go once or not?
Yeah, didn't he get
Once
was
or
he
twice.
Yeah.
got there? He was being thrown to by Osweiler, wasn't he?
AJ Green's there as well, isn't he? And he did go
Yeah.
to the playoffs with Dalton.
Zach
But
Ertz won it with.
there are players around in that dressing room that are experienced in the postseason, and I think he's got such raw talent anyway that's going to help. But then to have those other people there, they are a great team. Don't get me wrong.
And we've mentioned the offense. The defense is still really good as well. So
they've kind of mixed what the Rams have done, but then also drafted well. So like they've managed to bring in experience, but also get some good young talent in. Whereas the Rams have just gone, obviously, the opposite way and just we're just going to trade free agency. But I think the Cardinals have got quite a good balanced approach to that.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have this sort of Rams approach of we want April off, but they're
Even though they're more likely to have April off.
yeah, the GM's doing a really good job there, building a team. So Bucks 30, 17 Falcons.
It's all about the soon-to-be MVP, Tom Brady. He has the most yards, the most touchdowns.
He'd had a quiet couple of weeks though, hadn't he? And
and then all of a sudden,
all of a sudden, Gronk wanders back
2
into
more
his
touchdowns.
life.
So they now pass Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates, second all time for passing touchdown connections.
Peyton and Marvin Harrison.
Yes, who are quite a long way ahead.
Yeah.
So it's 90 touchdowns for Gronk and Brady, 112 for Manning and Harrison.
Yeah, well, they'll probably get that by playoffs.
It's possible. Tom Brady is 10-0 in his career against the Falcons. And when this was pointed out to Bruce Arians said he's just always been on a better team. Which I think is an amazing thing to say.
It's true, though.
No, it is. It is true, though. So the key, obviously, the Falcons are not a good team. But they were in this game at one point when Brady threw a pick six from the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
Just completely missed the linebacker.
The huge, gigantic linebacker.
Just didn't see him, apparently. It was a bit of a strange one.
And this is supposed to be our MVP.
Yeah. Beyond that, though, 38 of 51, 368 yards at 7.2 yards per and 4 touchdowns. He was flawless by that. He didn't get sacked, didn't get a hand on him. I think they had 1 quarterback hit in the whole game.
Yeah, but it's the Falcons.
I know, but he's just playing at such an elite level. And this is what happened last year. As the season got longer, he got better.
Jim said before the start of the season, could this be his most statistically impressive season? And
it should be. He's got a Hall of Famer tight end. He's got the best wideout room in the league.
He's got a really good defensive line.
He's got a great wideout room that no longer has Antonio Brown in it after he forged a COVID pass. I mean, seriously.
Arseholes are going to arsehole, right?
yeah.
What a dick.
Bruce Arians, when they signed Antonio Brown, Bruce Arians said, like, as soon as he's in trouble, he's off. This kind of, I'd say this is trouble. Are we going to see Antonio Brown for the Bucks again?
Yeah, probably. Brady loves him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Is this a power play now between Brady and Arians to see who's the actual boss in Tampa?
We know who is.
Arians does not give a shit
No.
who the boss is. He's won a Super Bowl now, isn't he? He can smoke cigars for the rest of his life. He could not give a shit.
No, they look good for another one. They think they look even better with Antonio Brown in their team. So, yeah.
And playoff Lenny seems to have turned up early as well.
It's always helpful. His one-handed touchdown grab was quality.
Yeah.
It's like he moved well for a big man.
I love seeing the clip of Brady as you hand it off to him, turning around to Lenny 4 tuddies. Fucking hate that. Going, it's cover 2. And because he's got that much control over the offense, he's good at what he does. He's still just a dick. But, and I look forward to Gary's existential crisis when they play the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
I'll be busy.
That's all right. We'll still be at your house watching it on the big screen.
Valentine's weekend that weekend.
We've mentioned
You're
Matt
taking
Ryan.
me out.
Mentioned Matt Ryan a couple of times this season. He had nearly 300 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. What more can Matt Ryan do on this team? Because there's been a lot of questions since the weekend about, is this it? Is he done? And I think they'd be insane to move on. I still think he's a top 10
insane
quarterback.
to move on. He's not a top 10 quarterback. Age has, but with what he's got, I mean, he needs to hope that Calvin Ridley feels more like himself. If not this season,
130
next.
yards out of Russell Gage.
I mean, I'm not, I still think he's
Russell
a
Grant. That's a great.
He's not.
That's not bad.
I mean,
I think Matt Ryan's still got a place in this league.
Yeah.
And when you look at Teddy, what could he do in Denver if Rodgers doesn't move? He needs a great offensive line.
He's not mobile.
If you look at
all.
Brady, you're not expecting Brady to run around, run touchdowns in very often. The odd quarterback sneak. But if you've got Matt Ryan in that Bucs team, he's not going to be Brady. But are you going to see a huge drop off?
No, the drop off isn't massive, is it? I still think on a majority of teams, Matt Ryan is a really good, solid, winning starter.
Is it now called the Ryan level rather than the Dalton level?
No, he's not fallen that far for me.
no, he's a very good quarterback. It's just
Kirk
the
Cousins.
teams.
Are you saying he's not top 10?
I didn't. I said
That's
he's
really
probably-
harsh on Kirk Cousins.
I know, but I can't stand the man.
There's no way Kirk Cousins is the line in this league. If so,
Who are we picking? Who's the line?
It ain't Dalton anymore, that's
No,
for sure.
it's not
Jesus.
Dalton anymore. No. Who's the line? Who's halfway? Is it
Wait,
Goff.
Is it?
No,
Carr,
Goff's below
Carr,
the line.
Carr,
maybe.
Derek
Carr,
Carr.
maybe.
Carr.
Or
Carr's
Jimmy
a good
G.
season, mate.
Jimmy G's probably not quite that high up.
Jalen Hurts.
Difficult one.
It's not Jalen Hurts. Don't just do it. Don't.
I just wanted to see his face when I said it.
Is it? Okay, so
But that's something for us
it
to work
then,
out, though.
even though he's still young.
Carson
is
Wentz.
Is it Tua? Because is he a franchise quarterback? Isn't he a franchise quarterback? Is the weekly...
Tua would be around that
So,
level.
for me, it might be the Tua line.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Well, let's move on to Jalen Hurts, who beat the dogshit Jets 33-18.
No,
he didn't.
No, he did not.
No, so of course it was
Minshew Mania.
Minshew. Oh god, that's why I've.
Goose.
John just blacked it out as if it didn't happen.
He did look awesome.
He did. He looked.
Did look really
The
good.
thing is, he looked like the player that we all know he can be, because he is a decent player. It's just the character.
20
of the
of
bloke.
25, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked twice. But basically, he turned up and did a really good job. He completed his first 13 passes.
Against the Jets.
Yeah. It always comes with the qualifier of against the Jets. But it was nice to see.
Every game against the Jets has an asterisk against it.
Shouldn't really count. At the end of the season, you have to drop all points scored against the Jets.
Well, it's like every week when you're just searching for who the Jets are playing for defenses on fantasy. Like, the Saints.
The Eagles have basically conformed to their new idea, which is we can rush the ball. Miles Saunders, 24 carries, 120 yards. Kenneth Gainwell had 54 yards and a touchdown.
And actually lived up to his name for once.
This is about...
Gained all right.
Gained all right. And they got more out of Dallas Goedert, who had his first 2 touchdown game of his career.
Can I just say...
Yeah, because they have a quarterback that can pass the ball.
Playing a man whose face I can see now, who had Justin Jefferson and had Goddard this week, I lost by 9 o'clock. I was furious.
Would you play Minshew over Hurts all the time, Jim?
Yeah, I think it gives you a different option. Like, I think part of the reason that the Jets were so... I think part of the reason the Gardner Minshew was so good and the Jets were so bad is because all through the week, the Jets would have prepared for Jalen Hurts. They would have prepared for a much stronger running attack. But, Miles Sanders had probably one of his best games of the season, if not the best game of the season. And Gardner Minshew, love him or loathe him, he does give you a passing option. So it keeps the opposition defense, it keeps them honest, basically. They don't have to stack the box or set the edge as much as they would with Jalen Hurts. Because they've got then to kind of defend deep against someone who can actually pass the ball with a level of accuracy.
But you're asking Jalen Hurts' biggest critic in this show. It's like
was
asking,
gonna say.
I
hey,
know,
Griff,
but
do you like ice cream or cow shit?
I could have said a lot of
flavour is
similar
the
things
cow shit?
about Lamar Jackson earlier. But I kept quiet on that one.
he's had 10 days. He needs his platform. He needs to get a release.
I fucking loathe Minshew, but I'd take him in my team.
Well,
in
I
a
was going to
heartbeat.
say, how much would he elevate the Giants team? I think he would.
Hugely.
I think he's a much
Hugely.
better player than Daniel Jones. Really, honestly, seriously, I've got it written
hugely.
here. Gardner Minshew. I've written it next to the Giants when we get further
that
down
would
the
be
list.
so funny. I'd do a whip round for a Minshew shirt for John.
If they sign Gardner
Oh
Minshew,
no, we get injured.
if they sign Gardner Minshew, I think you should have to grow the moustache.
I already had the air.
Exactly, be amazing. On the other side, Zach Wilson actually had one of his better games of the season. They still lost, but he had 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He wasn't awful. You've got to look for something if you're the Jets because there's not a lot else.
Have Vanny created a connection with Elijah Moore?
Yeah, we're not discussing that after Jim and I talked about who I should start in fantasy, and I sat Elijah Moore for Jacoby, no receptions on one target Myers, and Elijah Moore racked up 17 fantasy points after I'd already left Michael Gallup on my bench and he scored again. Luckily, Chris is terrible at fantasy football, so I won anyway. But yeah, I mean, Zach Wilson looked better. If he can keep connecting with Moore, at least that's something to say you've got out of the season because there is nothing else.
He's got Michael Cart back in a couple of weeks. That will help.
They're 3-9. They're going nowhere. The biggest thing that they need to evaluate is have they made the right decision with Robert Saleh?
We don't know.
It's not even have they made the right decision with Zach Wilson. It's the coach.
He'll get another year, won't he?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think the sensible thing will be to give him another year.
He'll definitely get another year. He won 3 games.
It's the Giant. It's the Jets' leadership, isn't it?
They definitely will give him another year.
Yeah, they
To be fair, that's progress from last year. They only won 2 games.
Yeah, that's also
what I mean.
true.
They gave Gase 2 years, didn't they?
He's got a brand new quarterback, one of the youngest in the league. He is definitely there next year.
Yeah.
So if we give 14 years, he's going to win and he's going to go a season unbeaten.
So, what the fuck? The Raiders 17-15.
They did it with AC/DC lead singer Brian Johnson scoring the game-winning field goal, by the way.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm assuming it's him. There must only be one Brian Johnson in the world.
Yeah.
It's not a common name.
He had his flat cap on under his helmet, I assume. That just really amused me when I saw that. This was not a great game by any stretch of the imagination, but come on, Raiders. What was this? This is awful.
It's just typical Raiders. They beat
good teams.
Beat good teams like the Cowboys, and then they go and lose
and
to
the Chiefs. They beat the Chiefs.
How do you beat the Cowboys and the Chiefs and then turn in this pathetic performance?
Lose to
15
Taylor
points.
Heineke.
Tyler Heineke is fine.
What's their record at the new stadium, Raiders? Because
I have no idea.
No idea.
I just wondered how they're actually doing at home there.
I'm not quite sure.
They will have posed
if
the
only
question.
They're
It was a waste
3
of
and 4 at home this year.
3 and 4 at home this year.
So not great.
No, not great. But the Patriots have
They don't
won more
need-
on the road than they have at
I
home.
just wondered if there was, some,
They're the
still-
only team with a transitional head coach, aren't they? So, it's well, they're not having that guy next year, are they?
Oh, that sort of transition.
Yeah. They had to get rid of the other bloke because of
Finkel is Einhorn.
I thought they were being really progressive.
no.
Oh yeah, just after Gruden, we'll just go.
But yeah, I can't even. Who is the head coach at the Raiders? I don't even know his name. Bisaccia.
Caitlyn Jenner.
Grace Bisaccia.
But yeah, yeah. Like he's the only one who's not a full-time head coach, isn't he? So yeah, it's just not surprised that they probably don't have much of an outlook for this season.
I don't think there's anything else we need to say more about this.
Oh,
game.
I disagree so much. Yeah, I mean, so Washington 6-6, Las Vegas 6-6. These two teams are clinging on to the playoff races. In fact, Washington are actually in a playoff spot right now.
Helps the Giants, hey?
Well, I mean, Paul, if you want to hand your money over anytime, I'll take it.
There's a lot of season left.
Yeah.
There really isn't.
Yeah.
There's not that much.
Last week of a fantasy
Regular
season next week.
I might have made the playoffs then. Huh?
Both, I think, Griff.
Yeah, I have not.
You suck.
Okay.
Oh, Logan Thomas. That's what I was going to
Yes.
mention. Logan Thomas has been really good in his 2 games that he's been fit. And then they thought he'd torn his ACL again, but it turns out he hasn't. And he may actually be back. If they make the playoffs,
really?
Logan Thomas will be back.
I'd heard he'd
It's not
MCL.
it's not an MCL or ACL tear.
Such a talented tight end.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So athletic.
Oh well, that
so open.
that's as well. Raiders defense sneakily good this year. Like
Yeah.
but yeah, pointless. Jags 7,
Oh, Christ.
37 Rams. I mean, Rams are good, Jags are bad.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting anything different to what
I
just
mean-
happened there.
No.
The 7
Oh, no,
was a
Beckham
bit
scored
of bit more unexpected, quite frankly. Yeah, Beckham scored, good touchdown.
So Jim sent us an article today with Urban Meyer explaining why Carlos Hyde is getting more carries and touchdowns than James Robinson at the moment.
Wasn't the basic idea of the article that he doesn't know?
Yeah, he's not sure, and he needs to ask someone.
The premise is that it's someone else's responsibility about who goes in at running back. And it was a piece on Pro Football Talk by Mike Floro who made the point on, you're the head coach. You should be making these calls and know what you should be going on. I think, I say we turned on him. Well, I turned on him after 2 games of the season and joined the anti-Urban Meyer bandwagon. But it's fair to say that I think a lot of the media are now starting to turn on him as well.
Because he's terrible. For the second week running, Laquan Treadwell was the Jags lead receiver. Who knew he was still alive, let alone in the league?
I mean, Laquan Treadwell and Tavon Austin must be the most 2016 pass.
And Marvin Jones.
Yep.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean,
and Carlos
they need to bring Anquan Bolden out of retirement, and then they'll be.
That's amazing.
Maybe they should sign Tidkin.
Yeah. Jesus fucking Christ.
Not ideal.
Robinson had a drop, had a fumble really early on, but so did Carlos Hyde.
I don't get it. I don't get the love in for Carlos Hyde. On the Rams though, Sonny Michel picked up the slack. Darrell Henderson was out of the game. Sonny Michel, 24 carries, 121 yards, 5 yards a carry, scored a touchdown, and looked perfectly good. I was saying to John, the reason the Patriots allowed Michel to leave, firstly, there's definitely injury concerns, but mainly it's the lack of pass protecting ability. The Patriots want all their running backs to suddenly be able to change what they do and pass protect. And apparently Sonny Michel couldn't pick that up.
It looked quite evident on certain plays that,
Yeah, he was allowing pressure, but he didn't allow any sacks.
No.
And I think the fact that the Jags are poor probably helps.
helps.
This is the right game for Sonny Michel. But let's not forget, he's not a bad running back. He's a Super Bowl touchdown scoring winner. And he's actually one of the better, what you'd say, second man in a tandem in the league. So this was a great advert for him, I think, in the game.
I think I'm not looking to defend Urban Meyer here because I'm on
That'd be a short
I'm on the
podcast.
bandwagon with bandwagon.
Bandwagon.
Yeah. The key,
Is that like Ralph Wiggum?
yeah. The key thing for me here is I think it's the front office in total that's bad there. You could have any head coach and that team would still suck.
I don't agree. I think, okay, I know we took the Mickey out of the receiving core, but I think there's a lot of talent on that team. I think it's just been wasted. On the defense at times this year has been decent, and not through whole games, but through periods in games, it's been decent. They have got a talented quarterback, and they have got a talented running back, but they just don't seem to be able to get the best out of them.
It's just one of those franchises that's not likely to ever get it right in my book. And Urban Meyer is a piss poor appointment as far as I'm concerned.
They almost looked it out one year.
Yeah, that's it. That's as good as they've ever been with a
And
lot of luck.
then immediately, it all went to shit.
They regress to the mean. Cooper Kupp, 129 yards, 16.1 yards per catch, got another touchdown. Dissected the Jags defense after the game when he was asked how he managed to get open, and he basically called what their defensive play was going to be. It's like, we knew that was what I was going to do, so I just had to walk past that guy and then I was free. It's like the guy is so bright as well as athletic that it's no wonder he's setting records on this team.
In a season where I'd argue that there's not been a quarterback that's properly stood out as MVP, is this as good a chance as any of a wide receiver winning the MVP? Because Cooper Kupp has just been absolutely
I see
brilliant.
exactly what you're saying, and there is zero chance of that happening.
Yeah.
It's as good a chance as ever, but that means still zero chance.
Yeah, offensive player of the year, maybe.
Stafford was given a lot of grief over the last couple of weeks when they'd lost and he'd not played well, but he has the second most touchdowns in the league. He's got 30. He's only behind Brady, and he's got the third most yards. Stafford's been a massive upgrade on Jared Goff. Without doubt.
Yeah, well,
he's going to have the odd bad game.
Yeah, I put Stafford down for MVP, didn't I, at the start of the season, because I still thought the Rams would win the Super Bowl. And when you you go through their roster, it's still awesome.
Yeah.
Both sides of the ball, and they're going to go in as one of the top seeds from the NFC.
Yeah.
And when you look at their record as an 8-4, but that is out of the NFC West.
They'll go in as fifth seed if they can't catch the Cardinals, which means they're going to be on the road.
Exactly, but if you went and picked them up and put them in almost any other division, they'd be they wouldn't be 8-4, would they? They'd be 10-2.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Giants 9-20 Dolphins.
You can't skip over it.
Yeah, from one terrible franchise to another.
So from one terrible franchise to two more.
At least the basketball's going all right in New York.
That's very true.
For once.
I mean, who gives a flying fuck? Quite frankly,
I was just trying to make the New York Barrows – listeners feel slightly better about the fact that all of the football teams
it's still the home of culture in the USA. Yay! The Guggenheim is a lovely place to visit.
Tua 30 of 41, 244 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. This is somewhere near game management level, but you can win in this league with that player if you've got other players who are explosive. Jalen Waddle, 9 receptions, 90 yards. Didn't have a touchdown this week, but he's been outstanding.
I would say it's above game-winning level. Like in that, I mean, they've won the last 5 games.
Yeah, 5 in a row.
His accuracy is 78% in that 5-game streak, and he's not turning the ball.
And that's what he was famed for in college.
Yeah.
He was just so accurate. So this is what you're going to get out of Tua when he's not injured, and this should be putting the Deshaun Watson stuff to bed.
I
think
completely agree. The other thing that the defense has also turned up. Again, in that 5-win streak, they're conceding on average 11 points a game.
Yeah,
like it was bad to start the season, and now it's suddenly got better. I think one of the players is interviewed and afterwards, and they asked like, "What's changed?" And he said, "Absolutely nothing. We've just carried on doing what we've been coached to do." And I think that's a very kind of Bill Belichick-esque point from Brian Flores. It's not about week to week. It's about consistency through the season and gradually getting better. And now I think that they're yielding the benefits of that.
Yeah, it's a very Belichick approach to the season. They perhaps haven't executed it quite as well, but
they executed it 2 or 3 weeks too late.
Basically, but you can see the building blocks are there. Unlike the Giants, who've got a very odd approach to just about everything. Like I keep looking, and then they have the odd game where you think, okay, they've won. The defense every other week steps up, plays very well. I can't get my head around Saquon as a number 1 running back anymore. 11 carries, 55 yards, that's fine, but there's no explosiveness.
You were saying that there was a special teams problem in San Francisco, and there's a very good special teams coach who's going to be available after this year.
Yeah, you reckon he's going? I'm
No.
not sure. I don't think he's going.
I think.
I don't think he will either.
I think the GM is the scapegoat here.
Yeah, I think Gettleman. I think most people, it's going to be the least biggest surprise that Gettleman will be leaving at the end of the season. I think what troubles me is that this is like Joe Judge's 28th game under his reign, and the team still doesn't, I don't think, understand what they're meant to be doing. There's a great part of Peter King's article this week was that late in the third quarter, the Giants had a ball, and this was a succession of plays. QB Mike Glennon took a 13-yard sack. Giants took a timeout to avoid a delay of game penalty. Glennon took a 7-yard sack. Giants took a delay of game penalty, and then it was 3rd and 33, and the Giants called a run play.
I mean, the fact that you were playing Mike Glennon already alerted us to the fact you weren't going to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, if the Dolphins the Dolphins only needed to score 20. I mean, as soon as the Dolphins get into double figures, they know they've won this game, quite frankly. Glennon isn't the answer, quite frankly.
No shit.
But it looks like he may have to end the season for us.
It does.
I mean, because Jones's injury is worse than first feared. I mean, I'd quite happily. I mean, I feel Jones. Look, seems like a nice bloke, whatever else. He's just not. He's not a starting quarterback. He's going to be.
Seems like a nice bloke.
That's all I can say about him. He's not a starting quarterback.
Can you remember what the Mike Glennon stat was I gave you at the weekend?
He sucks.
Yeah, he sucked. He started 28 games in his career. How many of those has he won?
4.
2.
No, it's 4. All when he was with the Bucks. Like, he hasn't won for years, like 6 years since he won a game. The dude is terrible.
I mean, it's not a surprise. Backup quarterbacks, generally they're shit. I mean, sometimes you get lucky and, no one's got any tape on a Mike White. So, whatever he does, it's, you might surprise, they surprised a few couple of teams. Mike Glennon's not surprising anyone, is he? Because, everyone knows
I'm surprised he's still
shit.
in the league.
But yeah, no, honestly,
still
I've
got
said
a
it earlier.
surprisingly long neck.
Great.
He looks like an albino giraffe.
I would, for me to say,
You'd rather have.
I'd rather have Minshew and just sort of blindly, just not follow the team when we're not playing. Fuck. I mean, it's just bad. And yeah, we have to look back at the Dan McAdoo days of 11-5.
Dan McAdoo.
And what did I say?
Dan.
Oh, fucking hell,
Fucking
sorry.
Dan. You'd rather have Dan McAdoo than Daniel Jones.
But yeah, the Ben McAdoo days of 11-5 and that photo on the boat and think, well, that was the last time we were good. And
6 years ago.
6 years ago. It's poor. And yeah, sorry.
I mean, I have to look back on last year when the Patriots didn't quite make the playoffs, and it was just terrible.
I mean, you were awful, but yeah.
I'm being stared at by Paul like you wouldn't believe. He looks very depressed.
But the decision to pick Jones looked stupid at the time, and it's just got worse and worse and worse.
So let me tell you, John, what's one of the best things about the NFL, and one of the best ways to get better and feel better, is Schadenfreude. Yeah. Let's talk about the Texans.
Colts 31, 0 Texans.
There should have been 0 Texans there. This was not good. Any game where Tyrod Taylor gets benched for Miles Davis is not great.
Davis Mills.
Yeah, whatever. Him. It's been a very long day. I have worked a million hours this week already.
It did leave me some kind of blue. That's a jazz joke.
They'd have been better off with Miles Davis. It was a very good jazz joke. I'm impressed. You should blow your own trumpet. Oh, come on, we're cooking on gas.
I feel after some of the Raiders jokes, we need to go highbrow now.
I think it's too late. I think we've crossed the line. The Texans are terrible. I think David Culley gets a second season regardless because I think they knew they'd be terrible. But I don't see what he's bringing to the party either. He doesn't seem to be able to inspire his team like Dan Campbell inspires his team. What does David Culley do for you?
Suck.
For you.
Just look at the pitch and think, what is the point of inspiring these fucking wasters?
It's just there's always one team in the league who you're just like, why are you here? And for me, that feels like the Texans at the moment. They're just they bring nothing other than a loss.
They traded away everything they had, and then their one asset, became unavailable to them. What are they supposed to do? They've got nothing, have they? Apart from people at the end of their careers or people who shouldn't have a career. That's all they've got.
It's a mishmash of veterans when you look through it.
Rex Burkhead 8 carries for 30 yards, leading the rushing game.
Brandon Cooks, David Johnson as well.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks 3 receptions, 38 yards.
Yeah, he was good 5 years ago. But
Phillips Lindsay.
It's just people at the ends of their career just earning a bit of cash. That's it.
Yeah, there's nothing great on that team whatsoever.
It's going to take years for them to bounce back.
There's a good left tackle.
Yeah, but they're still glad they gave up all that to protect Davis Mills, Tyrod Taylor. I'm disappointed in Tyrod, if I'm honest, but I just don't know what he's supposed to be working with.
The Colts' defence, I think, are flat track bullies, and I think that against bad teams, they're very, very good, and against good teams, they sort of flat to deceive. And this week, they came up against a very, very bad team and looked very, very, very good.
But Jonathan Taylor, though, 2 more touchdowns.
And that's why Cooper Kupp isn't going to get MVP, because if it's not going to a quarterback, it's going to go to Jonathan Taylor.
It's going to Brady. Why are we?
And it's going to go to Brady.
1,300 yards, 16 touchdowns. He's first in the league now. He's passed Connor for rushing touchdowns. It's just... He is this year's Derrick Henry. He's leading the league in attempts, which Derrick Henry did. Leading the league in yards, leading the league in touchdowns. He is this year's Derrick Henry.
And who was MVP last year?
Brady. That's not
Rodgers. It was Rodgers, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
It was
Rodgers, yeah.
Yeah,
But
But it was a quarterback was the
it's
point.
always going to go to a quarterback. It's going to be Brady.
and let's not kid. MVP, it's a fucking team game as well. It's like the Ballon d'Or. Who gives a shit? Quite frankly. But
Well, Lewandowski was quite annoyed that he didn't win.
Oh, big cookie, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, now, you know, we mentioned the Chiefs, Colts, very similar, like, you know, compared to where they were at week 4, week 5.
Oh, yeah.
They're looking really, really good, you know, chasing down playoffs.
The Texans basically...
Even ahead of Super Bowl contending Raiders.
Yeah,
you know.
they take me back to my point in the game 1 of this review, which was the Lions are far from the worst team. Because if the Lions played the Texans 10 times, I think the Lions would win 8 of those games, at least. Is that unfair?
7, maybe.
Well, I'm glad you wanted to argue the one fucking game. That was well worth jumping in.
80-20 is quite a bold statement, isn't it?
I'd stand by it.
Against the Lions.
I stand by it.
I genuinely believe that most teams' practice squads could beat the Texans.
Probably. You're probably not far off.
I think the Ooze Valley Eagles could give them a game.
Jets Texans, who wins that
Jets.
right now? Okay, Jags Texans.
I'll tell you who won't win that game.
Us.
Football itself.
It's going to come down to Jags Texans.
Jags Texans. Oh, it'll be a draw, won't it? It's going to be overtime. We're going to get extra Jags Texans.
It's going to be 6-all.
Yeah.
Oh God, I think the Jags would.
You're not even going to get a touchdown.
Jags might win that because Jags still have. At one point, you hope Urban Meyer's going to look on his bench and go, "Fucking hell, that's that almost Pro Bowl running back I've got, who I could probably use."
Earlier in the year, though, it was 37-21 Texans.
Yeah.
Which is one of the Texans' 2 wins. So I don't know. I cannot. I cannot.
Let's
see
not
past the Texans
let's not
as
even
the
talk
worst
about it
team.
anymore because they're shit. So
I'm glad we've ended on just getting really.
we're not
frustrated
going to end
with
on that though, because let's have a look at who's playing next week, and let's pick our games for the week ahead.
Are you looking for an overreaction?
I just want to talk about something that's not the Texans.
So who are the Texans playing next week?
Texans played the Seahawks.
Oh my god!
It's the Dross Bowl.
I mean, at least the Seahawks, that might win a back-to-back game, which is, who'd have thought of that when this, Seahawks were
I'm
shit
quite
in the bed.
interested in the Thursday night game, Steelers Vikings.
Oh, that's going to be
because
wonderful.
this is nail in the coffin for the Vikings if they lose, and I don't know what it will make of the Steelers if they lose. I don't know. I think the Steelers have to win this. Surely, I think
that draw helps the Steelers a lot.
It really does.
Yeah,
but it's nail in the coffin time for the Vikings. They can't lose.
Niners Bengals should be a good game.
Browns Ravens could be feisty, important game. Probably low scoring as well.
I mean, I'm looking forward to the Cardinals Rams. I think that's going to be
I was going to say
game.
The Monday night game is probably going to be the most important. Like that, I know if the Rams win that blows open the NFC West all over again.
Bills Bucks as well. If the Bucks give the Bills a seeing to, then the Patriots are home and dry.
Oh, that'd be great.
Also, the Jets Saints would be a good game because the Saints are in a bad state and the Jets are just. Bleh.
Yeah,
the Jets are just bad.
See, equally, I should be watching the Lions to see if they can win back-to-back games because nothing about the Broncos makes me think they're going to definitely win.
But I'd love to see the Broncos defense crush them.
Yeah, I was going to say that defense is awesome.
But that defense has also failed to show up at least twice this season.
It's one of the least relevant games to watch next week.
It's not relevant. It just
No.
I would like to see if the Lions can win again.
And as well, Washington Cowboys. The Cowboys.
Sounds like a great film.
The Washington Cowboys.
I'm not sure
Cowboys should win, but you wouldn't be like
Washington playing the spoiler would not surprise you at all.
Yeah, exactly.
You really wouldn't be surprised.
But yeah, as well, it is final weekends for some fantasy teams. So, of course, Patriots on the bye.
Yep.
Eagles, Dolphins, and one other.
Great.
Colts.
Colts. Yes, my defense. So yeah, hopefully that goes well for those still in contention. Unlike me and Legacy, who was out of contention about week 8.
Despite your one win in week 7?
I've won 2 games. Yeah.
It's going well. What's it like being the Texans of Dynasty football? You are effectively David Culley. You can't inspire your team to do anything.
Can I be the Urban Meyer? Because at least he got some.
No, because I don't hate you.
It's true. At least I know I do have James Robinson and remember to play him. So
that helps.
Didn't help this week, no. But we'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us. Cheers, Jim. Hopefully we'll be able to be in the same building next week. But yeah, until then, see you soon. Enjoy.